This is the third episode of the Hypothesizzle podcast. I'm Jensen, the host for this podcast, and my co host for today will be Bjorn once again. And today we will be doing a response to an article published in the Today Online newspaper titled No Friends in Real Life as Student Youths Struggle with Digital Devices Addiction.
Right. So this article is written by Kahirul Anwar. Like as mentioned, it was published on the Today paper. Pretty much about the issue of the dark side of becoming a digital nation and how teenagers and children these days, as young as like 5 to even 11, that they are actually spending so much time on their digital devices that they are actually having quite a lot of problems with their social lives and social interactions.
Now, as somebody who doesn't actually have friends in real life, and all my friends are clearly made through the internet, I had some pretty strong things to say in response to this article. So, without further ado, let's just do a reading and a kind of a reaction to what the article has to say. So it starts off Singapore. Oscar, not his real name, 11 years old, spends so much time on his computer that all his friends are made online. Oh, 26 years old, I'm kind of the same. All my friends are made online. He hardly interacts with others in the non virtual world and does not know how to do so. Okay, that's an interesting statement. A dark side of becoming a digital nation has emerged in Estonia. Teenagers, children, some as young as 5, are spending about 15 hours a day on digital devices. I'm just going to stop this here and
Yeah.
like he hardly interacts with others in the non-virtual and does not know how to do so. Um, now, from what I've observed in general, the League of Legends players that I work with, it tends to actually help them. Like it, these kids, perhaps in terms of their development, they were not able to properly socialize with other people, and through the participation of a team-based social game, they actually learn how to socialize better, interact better with people. And this is like testimonials that I get from parents as well. They say that this used to be very that their son used to be very quiet, and until they got involved in gaming, and then they started to open up more and enable them to connect much better with their friends, make friends in school, be able to connect to other people, and connect to their parents as well. So what I've observed here is actually kind of the opposite. But maybe this is just looking at a snapshot of time at 11 years old, and perhaps these people who are partaking, or this case study in particular, might be partaking in a particular virtual world, which might not be that high interaction. So it could be those very immersive, very escapism kind of digital medium that is engaging with.
Yeah. I mean, considering that they're actually very young, it also means that like as we were kids, we were kind of like forced in an environment where it's more social and you have to pretty much get out there kind of thing. But for kids their age, they don't really have that concept of openly socializing by themselves, and because they are stuck with these digital devices, as you can see even in the article, they didn't really target gaming in general. They're just saying like digital devices in general. So maybe even like for kids as young as 5 to 11, they probably aren't really that immersed in team building games or multiplayer games in a way. And I'll believe that most of them are either engaged with either more like single player kind of games and interaction, or they're just pretty much just spending their time watching like videos they on.
Yeah, which is another interesting kind of interaction, right? So if you're looking at Let's Players, right, where you have these people who do pander, who do cater to these crowds, and or if you're just talking about a gaming medium, or we talk about spending time on digital devices, it's also through social media. There is still a certain social dynamic towards that. It's only when we're looking at very specific categories where we're talking about people who are playing RPGs and stuff like that. And this is something that has been happening throughout the even before the age of the iPhone. So I think that there is something going on here that it need not necessarily be entirely that might be a little bit disingenuous in the way that they're framing it. Or rather, when we talk about people not knowing how to do so, it could be perhaps the breaking of conventional norms where we talk about things that are considered polite and we talk about manners, and some of these things are kind of thrown out of the window because when if you learn your social interaction in a mediated space, in a institutional space, there is a teacher, there is a parent, there is usually somebody to impose a certain set of rules to say that this is acceptable behavior, this is not acceptable behavior. And if you think all the way back, this is something that has been consistent. Like people are expected to behave in a certain way. But the internet has kind of like thrown that into the wild west kind of thing where everything is deregulated. Or rather, you still have regulations, right? You still have chat filters and stuff like that, but they're not effective regulators because all they do is they change whatever word they're speaking into stars, and people still get your meaning. They're just coding them with expletives and all sorts of colorful language. And that
Yeah, I
that could
mean,
be that could be the criticism here, that now people start to greet each other with things. And I think a very good example is this is the usage of the word rape, which this was a very hot topic, controversial issue, where I think all the way back when there was the StarCraft 2 player, and I think he was playing against a female opponent, he didn't realize it, and he said, I completely raped this player.
oh
and
yeah,
and this is how the language changes. And it was a very very controversial thing. It's like, should language be censored? Or even with the Overwatch League and stuff like that, is the try hard meme on Twitch itself, is a necessary racist thing? Is Twitch culture, is Twitch chat culture necessarily a appropriate thing to be doing? And we see these memes spilling over to our interactions in real life. And how many times have you heard somebody say kappa, especially when you're interacting with people in the gaming circle, right?
yeah,
So that's a very interesting thing. So it is a different kind of development in terms of the interaction that you have in in the language, in the lexicon that you learn, because you absorb all these things. And the learning of language is very closely tied to input, right? And you actually have I actually have all these stories about how people learn a second language or even learn a third language. People who aren't born in an English speaking country, and they learn an additional language simply because they wanted to be able to play games in English. And I think in Singapore there are also people who learn Japanese and are able to effectively utilize the Japanese simply because they want to play Japanese games.
yeah, pretty much.
So I think,
Um, yeah,
yeah, that's kind of it. So let's move on to the next section. Child and adolescent psychiatrist Pavel Toropov. Well, Pavel, that's like the guy who did the dog experiment, right? Definitely a different guy, but similar name. Of the North Estonia Medical Center, said half of his young patients are depressed because of their addiction to digital devices. Okay, that's a fair statement. As somebody giving a testimony to it, something. This is
hmm,
becoming a problem, especially in a tech-savvy country like Estonia. Okay, he said some children or adolescents sit in front of their computers for up to 20 hours a day, so the social skills worsen every day. Now, the tech-savvy country problem, I think that's a fair statement. But to go on to say that it's because you're spending that much time for up to 20 hours a day, and therefore your social skills worsen, I think that is a false correlation that you have.
yeah. I don't think it's a very fair statement
Yeah.
to say that as well.
So once again, this is somebody coming in with his pre-existing ideas of oh, this is what acceptable social behavior is. This is what social skills are defined as from his his ideas of, right. I mean, he's a
Yep.
psychiatrist. He could arguably be a expert in this area, but this doesn't really elaborate or really elucidate what exactly is or are social skills, right? So this is just a blanket statement saying that social skills worsen every day. Is it your social skills based on his definition of what social skills are supposed to be, or is this social skills are worsening every day? Yeah, and it's like this is a crisis, and people aren't talking anymore. People are communicating in shit emojis, and I don't know what the heck is that supposed to mean.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think it's pretty unfair to make that statement as well, because like even personality kind of plays part, like in a person's interaction and social skill as well, right? Like if you're an extrovert, you're pretty much more outgoing, and therefore you're more sociable. But as compared to an introvert, you tend to be, you prefer your alone time. You want to be quiet. You find it tiresome to actually be engaged in social activities like almost every time of the day. So yeah, I mean, I don't really think like sitting in front of a computer for like 20 hours a day equal to social skill being worsened, because like as you mentioned, it is like a an alternative platform, where it actually helps you connect with people all over the world. That's something that like a traditional social um like tech not really technique, but like a way of doing is something that um okay, let me try to put my words together. It's kind of like yeah, you're just more well connected to the world. So it's something that technology has provided that what we can't do, like let's say like 20, 30 years back
So,
ago.
so there's a missing step there, right? We look at it and we say that this technology is supposed to be able to help us to connect better, and to say that
Yeah.
by using this technology, our communication is being worse. Um, the logic doesn't add up. For now, the logic doesn't add up, and it probably goes back to it's making our communication worse in terms of what you traditionally expect, right? And in terms of like if you ask somebody, say perhaps of your age group, the accepted means of communication with somebody, if you want to reach out to somebody, is through emailing, right? That's the default. Say, okay, hey, drop me an email. It's like, hey, let's arrange lunch. Let's drop me an email and stuff like that. Somebody from my generation would be saying that, okay, we arrange something, we create a Facebook chat group and stuff like that. And another 5 years younger than me, or another eight years younger than me, they might be saying that they're just organizing things over, I don't know, Instagram stories and stuff like that. And before that, right? And we look at how this is constructed for your age group, and if you were to go to work today, and if you're working among peers of your same age, and somebody creates a Facebook chat group for something, that is going to be, that has probably got to be an ultimate taboo, right, for you guys, because you're going to look at it and say, hey, Facebook's supposed to be my private life, work stuff. Okay, let's keep the work life balance separate. But for my age group, it's like, yeah, Instagram stories. Okay, then that's the line. It's like, yeah, this is where it becomes unprofessional. And if you look one generation before that, if you look at our parents' generation, emailing, you have to type it within a certain way, or else it becomes unprofessional. And for some of
Yeah,
the people, they would still give you this advice that don't send an email. It's too easy. It's too impersonal. Call them over
yeah,
the phone, and then ask them, okay, are we free to meet up for lunch on these days and stuff like that. So there are these expectations as well.
yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next part, because this is where it starts to get juicy. So Dr. Toropov's 37, also still a fairly young guy. So for him, probably, yeah, he still sends does things by email and stuff like that. Who has 12 years of experience in child and adolescent psychiatry, said children such as Oscar end up realizing that they cannot get along with others, so they continue to stay at home with the digital devices, creating a vicious cycle that they cannot break out of. Now, if we look at the study of adolescent psychiatry, and this is what you call a snowball effect. And I think that does have something that's true over here, that the digital devices continue to impede these things. So the visual cycle does happen with or without the digital devices. Kids that do not socialize well with other kids, especially when they come to the primary school level, when they become six, when they become seven, they tend to get ostracized. They're seen as the weirdo, right? Especially for kids who tend to have some form of global developmental delay,
Yep.
and or the term for it is Asperger's, and that there's like some other mean terms for it. And the fact that there's so many mean terms for it, and it's just passed down and it's imposed upon these children, is what creates the vicious cycle, because they want to interact and they cannot get along with others. With or without the digital devices, they would continue to be ostracized. But perhaps the digital devices creates a reinforcement onto this kind of behavior that they do not necessarily need with others. So it could be providing, it could be giving them this kind of safety net, that the social skills remain low. They're unable to learn how to socialize with people. They don't know how to play with people. They don't know when something is too rough, when something is too gentle, when touch is appropriate, when touch is not appropriate, and stuff like that amongst other kids, because they don't see a need to develop that, because there's this replacement for this need for interaction, for outward social interaction, that is now replaced with digital devices. So if you were poor last time, at least you would, okay, this sucks. I'm being ostracized by people. Maybe I want to get better at it. It becomes like, yeah, I'm just an introvert now. And how many times have you heard the term extroverted introvert or introverted extrovert? I hate that paradigm, right? I'm not expert in psychology, but whenever I hear that, yeah, the moment you're talking about introverted extroversion or extroverted introversion, nope. This is hogwash. You're selling snake oil to me. At least that's the way I see it. But I do really think that this is how a lot of people rationalize it, that they outwardly want to interact with people, and but then the social aptitude isn't really there. So they just do things through social media, and then they send you a poke on Facebook, and you don't know what the hell that means, and they call it introverted extroversion. And I can see how this creates a vicious cycle that they cannot break out of. Okay, the first big
Mm,
subtopic that he goes into now. I mean, do you want
yeah.
to say anything about that?
Um, I guess he pretty much just tried to back up the previous statement. So I think we can just move along for now and see what he has to say with the next point that you're going to bring.
Okay, and with that, we'll be back with part two about how they diagnose depression of the second part of this podcast.